Hey guys, my name is Christopher Ware, and as one of the newer contributors on Gaming on Linux, I thought I might do a video where I sort of introduce myself and talk about some of the content that I intend to make and how I record my videos and all that kind of stuff. And in the true spirit of gaming videos, I'm going to do it whilst playing a game. And yes, I can see you rolling your eyes from here because I'm going to be playing Goat Simulator, the MMO free DLC that they've added on. And the reason I'm actually deciding to play the game is, first of all, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a review about it, just so that this video isn't all about me, but also it's a game where you don't really have to think about it. It's a game that's not particularly important in the grander scheme of things, even within the industry, so it's something that I can quite frankly just ignore and just mess around on without actually having to worry about people, without having to worry about any important content sort of going uncommented on. So without further ado, let's start off by picking a class. So you've got Tank, Rogue, Magician, Hunter, Microwave, or no class. Well, I'd be ashamed to pick no class. But from the countless gameplay videos that you see on this alone, people seem to be picking the Microwave quite a lot. I don't actually see many people picking the Magician, and you know, you can't beat a good top hat, can you? Okay, so let's go on start. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about this game first, because there are probably going to be a lot of things that you might want to ask a question on, or that you might be wondering. Namely, why the heck am I playing Goat Simulator? Well, of course, Goat Simulator, a particularly frivolous game. Many people call it what's called YouTube fodder, or pewdie-bait, which is the idea that a game is made for the sole purposes of people making gameplay videos about them as a way of sort of self-publicizing them and then making more money by selling copies. Interestingly enough, of course, this was ported on Linux for reasons that I'm not entirely certain of. It doesn't seem like a game where the developers care particularly deeply about about the art form, if I'm completely honest. But then again, I could be wrong, and then I could be just making baseless assertions. Now, the idea behind this game in and of itself, there is no real difference to this MMO simulator as opposed to the traditional Goat Simulator stuff. There is just stuff lying around. I think there's the idea of quests, which are kind of hard to take because of that. And the idea of the game is that it's supposed to be a buggy mess, and they've left all the bugs in because, you know, haha, that's the jokes and everything. So, yeah, I can certainly tell that this video is going to have a number of skeptics because I'm just playing this game alone. It's not a serious game, or actually a well-made game. You've probably already noticed that the anti-aliasing on it is pretty abysmal. You've probably noticed that there actually are quite a lot of frames being, or what appear to be quite a lot of frames being dropped. I've got my recording software on the other window here, and it's actually telling me that the frames, well, the frame rate is 25 going into the recording software, so it's not going below 25. I did actually do a test record where I was recording at 30 frames per second, and it was going in at 30 frames per second. The frame rate on this is actually quite high, but it looks like it's skipping frames for no other reason than this game was actually very poorly optimized for Linux. And it is. That's, I think, is possibly maybe something that really kind of needs to be flagged out. Now, I haven't actually played this game on the Windows on my Windows partition, so I can't actually say whether or not this is a Goat Simulator specific one or just specific to the Linux port. And I'm not going to. This game is a waste of time. I'm not going to lie to you. It's quite poorly put together. The jokes are cheap. The gimmick is that you're a goat. You're in a simulator. You know, the joke that Surgeon Simulator pretty much started. Although I'm sure there were games that kind of followed that trend before then. You run around and you cause havoc. And yeah, countless YouTubers have been doing videos about it, raising its profile, and giving this game a lot of sales, which I'm not entirely sure it deserves, if I'm completely honest. The anti-aliasing on it, as you can see, although actually saying that, this game might look better on YouTube, one of the very few occasions where that might happen, because YouTube's anti-aliasing actually can make it, you know, make stuff look better than it actually is, especially when the anti-aliasing on this game isn't great. It's not. There are options to have, I think it's MLAA anti-aliasing, but it admits in the game that in and of itself is buggy. So anyway, Would I recommend this game? No. Okay, so I guess now I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I've decided to actually just go on the regular Goat Simulator part of the game now, and I've decided to ditch the headphones so that I don't get distracted by the ever so witty jokes that there are throwing around on here. Okay, so I discovered Linux in 1997, and I picked it up as a free distribution on one of the Linux magazines. It was SUSE, or Susie, or however you want to pronounce it, and yeah, back in those days, Linux was a significantly more. It was a tougher beast to tame, but I actually quite liked it. But eventually, over time, I sort of kind of realised that it really just was more. It was putting your computer on hard mode and getting very little in the way of rewards out of it. There were benefits. There were a lot of benefits, but unfortunately, at the time, in my personal opinion, the benefits didn't outweigh the benefits the Windows offered. But I picked up Linux a little bit later. I picked it up then in 2006 as I was going away to university, and I loved it. I loved it there and then. It was actually Fedora, the sort of first serious copy of Linux that I actually picked up, and well, Fedora Core, I think it was known back then. So what are these people up to? Boom. Yeah, and I, oops, my goat went flaccid. Yeah, yeah, and I actually really quite enjoyed it. So I sort of grew up with Linux since then. I'm now running Linux Mint 17, soon to upgrade to 17.1, and I'm a big fan of Linux Mint. I think they take basically what Ubuntu's done, and then just sort of tone it down a bit. Ubuntu's kind of like this enthusiastic young child or teenager that just wants to take on the world, and it does a lot of good, and it makes a lot of huge progress. But there are also a lot of times, ooh, that's glitchy. That's not. Oh, and then again, they take pride on this being a particularly glitchy game, don't they? Yeah, and Ubuntu is almost like that teenager that feels that it can take on the world. And Linux Mint to me just seems like it calms it down a bit. It brings it down a little bit, and it makes and it's sort of it's a more conservative, more reserved version of that goat head. More reserved version of Ubuntu. And I like the fact now that Linux Mint is sort of basing all of its subsequent distributions on the long-term support release of Ubuntu, making it more stable. And I think that's the reason I choose Linux Mint over Ubuntu, is that it just sort of takes stability just a little bit more serious than Ubuntu. Which is something I like. Life is too short to spend sort of fixing broken distributions now, and I sort of would like to focus more on discovering new things and breaking new ground rather than just trying to get your computer working. But that being said, and the reason I choose sort of Debian based distributions or sort of favor them anyway is because they're a little bit more mainstream, they're a little bit more well supported, and of course at this point now the game's being brought out. If you go on say GOG.com and you download a game, they give you the .deb file, which is fantastic. It's a great, very user-friendly way of getting your software down. We've been here. So then again, sort of, trying to jury-rig it to run on RPM, although possible, is just something that I don't really want to spend time doing. So I'm actually kind of see it just after playing this game now why all the gameplay videos are actually quite heavily cutted together. A lot of YouTubers I know who do tend to do the more long form Let's Plays decide to actually quite heavily edit their Goat Simulator videos. I think the reason for this is that it's actually significant. It's more boring. You're kind of seeing, I suppose, it's the more uncut version, and it is. It's almost like a game that's designed to be featured on YouTube, just as a cheap way to get advertising, really. And I think that's maybe that's an example of the state of mainstream gaming. But then again, yeah, I am actually very surprised that this was released on Linux. It doesn't seem to be ported particularly well. A lot of the bugs you're seeing here I didn't see on the gameplay videos of Goat Simulator I watch, where I presume most people play it on Windows. But there you go. And we can lick things, so yeah. So, one of the reasons why I really quite like gaming on Linux now is that I find that my Linux partition actually utilizes the hardware significantly better than than my Windows partition. Also, I've noticed, so I'm running Windows 8.1 on my Windows partition, and some family members I know are running 8.1. No. Yeah, no, I think it's 8.1. It's either 8 or 8.1. And they're really not happy about it. And there's a lot of little things about Windows that aren't to like. It takes a lot of control out of your hands, and it takes a lot of customizability out of your hands. Obviously, you can't change the user interface, and the more drastically they change the user interface, I think the more... was I just impaled on a lamppost there? Brilliant. Let's see if I can go back up into the mountains or something. Yeah, and the more drastically they change their interface, the more that you... There we go. That you kind of want to just take some control back over your machine. And I was actually quite surprised to find, I was looking on Steam today, that 6 out of the top highest rated games... 6 of the top 10 most highest rated games on the Steam store page are supported by Linux. 6 out of the top 10. 6, yeah, so that's doing pretty well. So things are definitely moving in the direction of Linux, and the introduction of things like SteamOS are no exception to that. And again, developers, it seems, are getting more familiar with the intricacies of Linux as well, because of course Android being Linux-based. So I'd imagine there's at least some crossover there, and that more and more people are sort of hearing about it. So if I basically explored all this area, there must be more things to run into and blow up. Speak of the devil. Let's go into a house. Let's go into someone's house. I hear that's fun. So yeah. I think that's about it. My rig isn't particularly top of the range. It used to be. I got it, bought it about 3 or 4 years ago, built it myself, custom rig, 3 gigahertz quad core, only 8 gig of RAM, so that's something that I need to think about upgrading soon, and it's a NVIDIA GeForce, I forget which graphics card it is. So some of the videos that I intended to be doing in the future is a lot more gameplay videos, obviously significantly tighter and better put together than this, and about better games as well, or at least games that are, shall we say, more substantive. I think this is a bit of a gimmick, really, and not being of the PewDiePie Markiplier style of YouTube, I don't think I'm doing this game particular justice. But then again, it's not a very good game. So yeah, and I'm going to be talking a lot of things, perhaps maybe industry focused as well, possibilities of large amounts of progress being made when it comes to support for Linux as well, and of course SteamOS as well, being based on Debian, which is fantastic news, and then being freely made available, which means that we might see a lot of people starting to effectively build their own consoles, and it would actually be great if a supplier like Sony or Microsoft actually decided to put together a console and then just use the Steam OS as a base for it. I personally can't see that happening, because I think there might be a profit incentive that that might that might sort of crop up as well, and but it'd be nice to see. It might be nice to see if there is at least a move in that direction. Maybe not from one of the bigger suppliers, but also maybe from sort of maybe Alienware or people like that actually building a console. But of course, it's a very well-known secret that console developers lose on every console that they make, so that they can make the money back on commission on games. Which they probably lose if they use the Steam OS. But it'd be nice if they could actually sort of work out that little problem. And it's not the first time that compatibility, it's not the first time that a console or a console system has been designed for widespread compatibility. It's never really taken off before. So that's about it from me. I think. Sorry to drone on a little bit too much. Just to answer a couple of questions actually in advance, because I know a lot of people are wondering, what software do I use to record my Linux games? And well, the answer to this is I use two pieces of software. I use Simple Screen Recorder, which unfortunately is still in beta, but it's actually making some pretty nifty progress, and hopefully soon we'll see it make its way onto the Ubuntu repositories. And I also use Open Broadcast Software, which again is very much in its beta stages, but again coming on really well, and soon I hope we'll see it in the Ubuntu repositories or the Mint repositories as well. The reason I use two is because sometimes some games will work better with one than the other. Open Broadcast Software is actually really pretty good, and I've fallen in love with it, you might say. So so that's about it from me today. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care now.